Hello everyone, this is Davinator12 here, and welcome to the long-awaited JOJO vs JoFoe video. If you have not watched my previous videos titled What Makes Up a JOJO and What Makes Up a JoFoe videos, please go watch those before continuing through this video. I will be talking about certain things that come from those videos that I will not be going over in this one. Now that is out of the way, let us begin. When thinking about JOJO vs JoFoe, I decided to break up this video into 3 sections. The first video, this one, will cover the first 3 parts of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I will be covering the so-called The Stone Mask trilogy. The next 2 videos we will be covering the other 2 trilogies due to me wanting to focus on certain parts that are tied together. For this video, we are once again starting at the beginning of the story. Phantom Blood, or Part 1 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Like how we covered in the last videos, we see how Jonathan Joestar represents the sacrifice of humanity, while Dio Brando represents the rejection of humanity. We see Jonathan sacrificing his youth to fight against Dio Brando's cruelty. We also see Jonathan sacrificing his time and his efforts to learn Hamon, to put a stop to Dio's evil plan. On the other hand, we see how Dio suffers from poverty and how he rejects his father by killing him. We see Dio reject Jonathan's kindness while repaying him with cruelty. Plus, the biggest thing about Dio is that he rejects his humanity to become something that goes against fate, a vampire. At the end of Part 1, we see the sacrifice Jonathan makes to protect his wife and future daughter-in-law. Not only saving his loved ones, but also his bloodline. Jonathan shows us that sacrifice of oneself for others is treasured more than selfish rejection of others. Dio shows us a negative aspect of the rejection of humanity. Instead of rejecting others for our own selfish desires like Dio, we should be rejecting bad aspects of ourselves that are harming others. That is why in the battle of sacrifice versus rejection in Part 1, Jonathan takes the win in an exploding fashion. Battle Tendency, or Part 2 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Again, like how we covered in the last videos, we see how Joseph represents the unpredictability of humanity, while Cars represents the perfection of humanity. When talking about the unpredictability of humanity, it is seen in our history from the very beginning. We have invented things like the phone, the automobiles, light bulbs, television, atom bombs, society, YouTube, etc., etc. We have a history of being unpredictable, not only with our inventions, but also our actions. Wars sometimes are unpredictable in how they start or end as well. Joseph shows us this unpredictability of humanity, like that time he pulled a tummy gun on Straight So out of nowhere. Joseph is also unpredictable in the state that you will never know what he will do in a fight or what he is thinking, which makes Part 2 so interesting. Cars represents the perfection of humanity, or how humanity longs for perfection. Humanity has always longed for physical or mental perfection. Cars, however, shows us a negative aspect of the perfection of humanity. We see Cars use perfection as a means for his own desires for power over all living beings. We see him kill his whole race. Countless dead in his path just to attain perfection. Instead of using perfection as an excuse to harm others, we should use perfection as a template to improve ourselves and realize we are not perfect. This is a reason Iraqi probably had Part 2 take place before World War II. Joseph shows us that unpredictability can be more beneficial for humanity than using perfection as an excuse for evil deeds. That is why in the battle of unpredictability versus perfection in Part 2, Joseph is able to run away with victory. Stardust Crusaders, or Part 3 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Once again, how we covered in the last videos, we talked about how JoJo represents the power of humanity, while Dio represents the peace of humanity. Throughout the journey of the Stardust Crusaders toward Egypt, we are always reminded of JoJo's immense strength and power. We see Star Platinum easily fight off Magician's Red in the first ever stand fight that we see. Whenever we see JoJo, we see an immense force coming from him. He is now the face of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Or whenever he came out, he became the face of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Whenever JoJo appears in the story, he is seen as a pillar of power for good in the story. It's simple but effective. On the other hand, Dio shows us a negative aspect of the peace of humanity. Humanity has always longed for internal and external peace in the world. But Dio uses this for his own selfish desires, wanting to use his peace not only for himself, but to be able to be on top of that peace. We can see this with his heaven plan in part 6 and how he longed for domination over peace. Dio understood fate, gravity, and peace, but he could not achieve it because it was for selfish desires. Instead of taking for granted our current peace that we live in, we should all look inward to preparing our power for when peace is surely broken. JoJo shows us that power is beneficial for humanity over how peace can be used as an excuse to become evil. That is why in the battle of power versus peace, in part 3, JoJo time stopped his way to victory. Just to recap, so you're not confused, I am saying that villains do represent an aspect of humanity. The only difference between the JoJo and JoFoe is that they show the negative aspects of it and what we should not do. The JoFoes show a negative aspect of humanity. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Be on the lookout for the second section of this video titled JoJo vs. JoFoe, The Arrow. This is Davinator12, signing off.
You're too slow!
I meant to, my dear Watson.
We are Venom. I'm Batman.
Oh my god! I love Bakeen.